This is Felt Recoil.
Welcome to the Felt Recoil Podcast. This is number 36. This will be a busy one. Excited to be here. Across from me, P-Mag. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic. And yourself?
I can't complain about it. Nobody would listen, as they say. And as a married father of 3, trust me, nobody's listening. Hence the podcast. Got to come in here and get it out somehow.
Well, usually when you start, I just turn my headphones down.
Exactly right.
I just see your mouth moving, and I just imagine what you're saying.
How's that working for you? Sounds terribly boring.
Keep showing up.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, better than I thought then. All right, a lot to get to. We're going to talk the D.C. Circuit Court's ruling in favor of the Second Amendment. This is a big deal. There's actually a lot of stuff in the opinion that I want to cover for you, so you have kind of the meat of it, the crux of it, and understand why this kind of stuff really is important. An amazing side note that we'll get to in a minute. The opposition in the case that was argued before the United States Court of Appeals was citing English case law from like 1325. Unbelievable.
That's going to be fine.
Yeah. So, they're obviously, you have what's called common law, if you study the law. And common law are things that normally aren't written down or they don't have to be written down, like murder or beating your wife. Some of those things are common law. You don't have to write this into law to understand it's illegal. It's just always been illegal, although we now have it codified in written law. But think common law marriage, right? If you live with somebody for several years, whether you marry them or not, you're now common law married. So anyway,
I'll read up on that.
Yeah, you should. There's some of that in there, and then show it to your wife. There's some of that in there that we'll get to. That's very, for me, it's intriguing. Hopefully, it is for you as well. President Trump undid Obama's allowance for transgender people to openly serve in the military. That's a hot topic we'll get to. I find it interesting that it's treated so much differently than Chester Bennington. And you're like, what does that have to do with anything? I'll tell you why in just a minute. And then, hint, hint, wink, wink, let's hope, cross our fingers, tentatively, very tentatively, by the way, we have a big guest for next week's show lined up. Pretty excited about this. I almost don't want to say his name because then it might jinx it.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
But we now have it in writing that he'll do a phone call with us, but we won't say his name just so we don't jinx it. Because we want Larry Vickers to come on and do the interview, so I won't say his name, and then that way...
Right, so we should not tell anyone.
No, we won't say anything. All right, and before we get into the show itself, let's talk about this week's charity of choice. Remember, as always, at feltrecoilshow.com, you can click the Charities tab and find a lot of the charities that we give our money and our time to. This one is no exception, and I know that I've done Operation Underground Railroad recently, if not last week or the week before, but they're hiring. And so I want to tell you that. There's 2 things they're hiring for, but first let me tell you what they do in case you don't know. Since being founded in December of 2013, Operation Underground Railroad has gathered the world's experts in extraction operations and in anti-child trafficking to help bring an end to child slavery around the world. These are people who are legitimately doing God's work on earth. They go find children who have been kidnapped and sold into sex slavery, and they get them back. They take them back, and they always go in through the front door in these countries. And by the way, not just third world countries, okay? In the U.S. as well. They're doing operations inside the United States because there are people that bring kids here and sell them to the trash people that live in this country that are into this kind of sick perversion. And so they're busting this up all over the world. If you'll visit OURrescue.org, you can sign up and be a monthly donor. I do that, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just telling you that I believe in the cause that much. I have met Tim Ballard personally. He's a great guy. His cause is worthy of your support. I hope you'll consider it. And right now, they are looking for people to work for them. They need a video editor, and then they need someone willing to be ready to fly around the world at a moment's notice. that will go and work in the undercover operations, recording and editing the video of the bad guys to turn over to the authorities. And from what I'm reading, that pays $300 a day when you get called up to travel. So ain't no joke. And that's not a salary to shake your stick at. But you're working as a contractor. It's not even a salary, just so I'm clear before you get mad at me. But how about making a little cash and doing the good Lord's work at the same time? OURrescue.org. OURrescue.org. Please go visit them and look at doing something good with yourself for a little while. Okay? All right. You feel better about yourself. You always do. At least I do. When I go to their events and help out, or when I get that notification from PayPal that our money just went over to them, it doesn't hurt as bad as when I reload my Starbucks app. Okay, man, do I really need another $25 for coffee? Probably not, but I'm putting it back on there because I'm addicted. But anyway, OURrescue.org. Look into more about Operation Underground Railroad. Thank you for listening. Okay. What do we want to start with? I want to start, the DC appeals was a big deal, and I've got a lot I want to get into on that, but there's two big things breaking in the news as we sit here now. First of all, this is where we got to start. The Senate has blocked an attempt to completely repeal Obamacare. Now, tell me more about how you can trust people who want to be politicians. Just please.
So all of the people that voted to repeal it in 2015 voted not to today.
What? You are kidding. It's almost as if they knew it wouldn't pass in 2015 so they wouldn't be held accountable. Are you serious right now? Tell me more.
Well, I will tell you that John McCain would like you to not listen to us.
I got to tell you something about John McCain. You know, everybody's acting like he's so dedicated. I had an uncle die from brain cancer, as John McCain is suffering with. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't take long for that person to become someone else. His cognitive abilities are not there.
His daughter is a conservative talk show host.
Right.
So he's out in the media telling everyone not to trust her, apparently.
Is he really?
I mean, indirectly.
I see what you're saying because of what he said today about stop listening to the blowhards and the talking heads. Understood. Sorry. That went over my head. You got to listen.
Sorry.
Keep your references on a third grade level, Hulon.
I'll break it down for you next time. I'm sorry.
Here's my problem with it. Everybody acts like, well, what a champion. What a guy. But if McCain wasn't in this for himself, okay, then what he would do is he would go and tell the people of Arizona, I have a disease that at some point will begin skewing my judgment. And there's no way for me to know when that will happen. It is impossible for me to know when that will happen. So the best thing I can do is resign, effective immediately, and allow you to hold a special election and put somebody in my place that you think can take the torch and run with it. The dude's been this. How long has he been in the Senate? 3 lifetimes at this point?
Something like that.
And so kudos for your service. Thank you for everything you've done so far. But when you retire, do you understand that if you get elected to Congress one time, listen, one time, if everybody decides you suck worse than anything else possible and you never get elected again, you make your $100 and whatever thousand a year for the rest of your life. Think about that for a second. Think about every congressman that has ever been elected. McCain being a senator, one time you could be elected, retire after that, and you make that salary for the rest of your life.
He was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Arizona's 1st District on January 3rd, 1983. And it looks like he has held office almost all of that time. He might have taken a little break there from 87 to 97. But
I mean, at some point he had to run for the Senate.
Well, no, let's see. No, he was there. Yeah, he's been around.
So my point is this. He's not going to be hurt financially. There's no principle at stake where he has to go back and prove something. But if he wants to truly convince people that he's in it for the will of the people, that he's there to do the people's bidding, he should not stay put. To me, he has an obligation now to resign, retire with grace. This is the same cancer that killed Ted Kennedy, and it happened real fast.
Did he resign?
No, I think he just, I I don't know.
He lived out his days, but I don't think he ever left.
The only
office,
thing I
right?
cared about with Ted Kennedy was that they buried him at the bottom of Chappaquiddick, but it didn't happen. Because, that's where he murdered a girl. In case you didn't know that. Okay.
I did know that. You just made a comment that piqued my interest. You're talking about him being hurt financially, so I just Googled his net
Won't
worth.
ever happen. Right.
Just take a stab.
All right. So, John McCain. He
Public servant, man of the people.
Sure.
A measly, 100 and whatever, how much they make a year.
Right. Tax free.
We'll call it 150.
Living stipend on top of that. Free health care on top of that. The real, okay, wait, let me not divert too much. Net worth, John McCain, 34 years in the Senate, or 34 years in Congress, $3.4 million.
That sounds reasonable. However, it's estimated that his net worth is over $21 million. Again, man of the people.
No, he's not, and none of them are. And it's not just a John McCain thing. The whole point here is, here's John McCain. He's dying of brain cancer. We now know that for a fact. After, by the way, he tried to sugarcoat it. Okay, tried to say, it's just something behind my eye. They're going to go and get it. No, it was brain cancer. I've had cancer, obviously not of that magnitude. I can tell you right up front, my doctor said to me, worst case scenario, this lump on your throat here could be cancerous, and it's not a big deal. And so I went into it knowing it's not a big deal. John McCain's doctor most likely said to him, worst case scenario, this could be cancerous. We need to be very, very careful. But nobody ever said that. McCain's people, as far as I know, were never, it could be cancer, but we're pretty sure everything's going to be fine. It was, we know it's going to be fine, no big deal.
How long do you think he's known?
Much longer than we have. Much longer than his constituents have, which is the problem. His people should have been informed immediately. Again, this is a diversion from the main point of, if we can't get Obamacare through, when we control everything, and I use we loosely because the Republicans are as trustworthy as the Democrats. If your party controls everything and you voted to put Trump in office, this is a massive failure. This is a massive, massive failure.
I don't want to take away from what you're saying. I'm with you 100%. But I'm doing a little Google foo over here. And what I've found out is it's estimated that his net worth could be $21 million. But it could also be up to over $100 million.
So what's your source on that, out of curiosity? Is this Wikipedia? Is this Forbes?
The richest .com.
Okay.
There's some stuff on Wikipedia here that's pointing to he and his wife having a net worth of about $100 million. CelebrityNetWorth.com says $16 million.
Gotcha. So there's a few people kind of corroborating this idea that he's a very wealthy man.
Sure.
And most politicians are, because they're getting, look, the wheels got to get greased somewhere. This isn't a free service congressmen are providing, though it should be. This is, you got to pay to play. And everybody knows that. It's like this dirty secret. I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, the end would come when our positions of power become positions of profit. That's what leads to massive amounts of corruption. And that's what we have. We have a corrupt government. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about me. And if they were there to do what they're supposed to be doing, they would have repealed Obamacare today. Lickety split. It's not that hard. When Barack Obama said to not elect Hillary Clinton would be an insult to my legacy, and the people overwhelmingly said, screw your legacy, and elected a celebrity reality television show host, there's something to be learned from this environment. And that environment is nobody trusts DC.
93 million people die a day. Okay, Chris?
Okay.
I don't know.
I see what you're doing. You're playing the liberal talking head now. Just say random things.
Yeah, just make up
that
stuff.
Can't be right. 93 million people die every day.
Well, their talking points legitimately are that something like, what do they say? They're saying like 36 million people are going to be without health care and they're all going to die. Mm-hmm. But there's only like 10.4 million people actually on Obamacare. So where does this other group of people come from? They're suddenly going to be disenfranchised by the repeal of Obamacare. It doesn't make any sense.
Won't happen. Has never happened. Nobody's ever died from a lack of health insurance in this country. It has never, ever, ever, ever happened. It's never happened. Nobody has ever gone to the hospital.
Go to any ER.
Yeah.
Who gets turned away?
Yeah.
Name a time someone has ever been turned away.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
No.
Not in this country.
And people know how to work the system.
Try that crap in Venezuela.
Yeah. Go down to Mexico without health care and try and become a citizen and see what happens. It's absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, a good segue here, the healthcare debate and John McCain needing to step aside for, his health is deteriorating, and it will deteriorate rapidly. He won't know his wife's name very, very soon. And I'm not trying to make light of it. It's very, very sad. The prognosis is so bleak. There's just, really you could argue for his personal sake. Stop working. Spend time with your family because you don't have long.
Wouldn't you?
Don't
Why
have
wouldn't
long.
you?
Pride. There's a lot of it. Look, you don't run for office if you don't have a bit of ego. Just like, you're not really successful in life if you don't have a bit of ego. You're definitely not going to be a rock star or a celebrity if you don't have a lot of ego. So people like McCain and people who are lifelong politicians, they believe in the ideas of Socrates and Plato, where these philosopher kings have to rule a society of stupid people like you and me and keep them in line by lying to them and making sure that everything is hunky-dory. But in all actuality, they're just manipulators and they're tyrants. They're just, 530 whatever mini tyrants, So that's what we have to deal with. They couldn't repeal Obamacare. John McCain will serve till the day he dies, whether he knows what he's doing in his office or not. And we're going to put up with it for some reason. We just continue to put up with it. So either way. So that was number one. No repeal of Obamacare today. Second big thing, President Trump says no more openly transgender people serving in any role, in any capacity in the military. And the left freaks out, just freaks out. How can you not? So here's what's interesting to me. Maybe a week ago, just about, I'd say it was Thursday or Friday last week, the lead singer of Linkin Park hanged himself on Chris Cornell's birthday. And Chris Cornell hanged himself however many months ago, whatever. Now, suicide is a tricky thing. I think suicide, no matter how you feel about suicide, I think the thing we can agree on about suicide is it is a mental health issue. Nobody in a proper state of mind kills themselves. It's a perverse act. Something has gone wrong upstairs that convinces you that you must die and you need to do it yourself. Now, I'm not going to get on the bandwagon of it being selfish, and I'm not going to get on the bandwagon of these people need help, okay? I'm not interested in having a conversation about why people kill themselves. That's for another time and place because it doesn't pertain. Here's my point. Suicide is a mental health issue. Could anyone argue that point? I think not.
I don't think so.
Okay. So what is the going rate, the percentage rate of the general population that will admit to having tried to have killed themselves in the United States of America?
I'd say less than 1%, and it's a stab in the dark.
All right.
No pun intended.
Little off. 4.6%. Okay. 4.6. So let's just make it 5 so we have a round number because we're going to use another round number. What is the percentage of the transgender community? Exclusively the transgender community in the United States that will admit to having attempted to kill themselves?
I've heard before it's pretty high. 25%, 30%?
About 40%.
Okay.
40%. So mental health is causing suicide at an alarming rate for white, wealthy rock stars. Okay. I don't understand that, but neither here nor there. But
I don't mean this to be insensitive.
Sure.
I really don't. Okay, so take me serious for a second. If you listen to the lyrics of Linkin Park, the writing was on the wall. I mean, come on, man.
Have you seen the video of his last interview? In his last interview, I don't know. Well, let me
I'm not a Linkin Park fan. Didn't really follow him, but I've heard enough of their music to go, this guy sounds like he's not really having a good go of it.
Yeah, he's pretty angry. And in one of his final interviews, I don't know his last one, so I'll take that back. In one of his final interviews, he says life's hard for him sometimes. There's voices in his head that don't like him, and he can't be alone. He says in the interview, and this is a recent interview, I can't be by myself and be stuck in my head because really bad things happen. It's a bad neighborhood is the way he describes it. So he was obviously suffering, and it's nothing to make light of. I just am terribly torn for his family. But he had access to everything he would have needed. There's no lack of help for somebody that's a multimillionaire for half their life. Go get the help you need. It's a maybe. I don't want to. All right, I'm not going to dive into it.
I'd say that's half the battle, though.
Convince yourself that you need the help, right? That's half the battle. All right, so let's leave that where it is and say this. Strong ties between mental health issues and suicide. Strong ties between suicide and the transgender community. Why are we not? We're so willing to have this conversation about proper mental health when somebody kills themselves. But when someone medically mutilates their own body, nobody is willing to say, we need to have a serious conversation about your mental health. There is something wrong with you looking in the mirror and saying, I need to go pay someone to mutilate me, legitimately remove my reproductive organs and feed me pills and build new organs on me so that I resemble the thing I think I am. Imagine an anorexic going to a plastic surgeon for liposuction and the plastic surgeon giving into that and saying, you're right, you're a 100-pound woman, but you're not skinny enough, so I'm going to suck everything out of you that I possibly can. We would think he was crazy. We would say, why are you not addressing the mental health issue here? If there is a strong tie between mental health and suicide, then it must be admitted that there's a strong tie between mental health and transgender because the suicide rate is so prevalent in that community. It's so prevalent. It's almost 10 times the national average, nearly tenfold. And we're not treating it like a mental health issue. Instead, we're saying, let's ignore it. Let's let these people join the military and then go out and do what they do. Well, now it becomes 25 a day. We're so concerned about the 22-a-day veterans, which is an arguable number, by the way, because that's not 22 veterans from the last 10 years. That is any person who has ever spent a day in the military that happens to have committed suicide for any reason whatsoever. 22 of them on average do it every day. We've romanticized it, and I'm trying to be nice about this, but we have legitimately romanticized that number as we want to think 22 people with PTSD who have been neglected by the VA, which is there a reason John McCain didn't use the VA, by the way? Just wondering. Those people are the ones killing themselves, but that's just not the case. And I'm not trying to downplay what's happening with these people. I'm just saying it's not exactly the case. But it stands that we're so worried about veterans who are killing themselves, and then we want to dump however many people. And look, I don't think there's more than 5 transgender people around the country right now trying to join the military. I just don't think there are, okay? The percentage of the population that is actually a transgender person is so small, and then the portion of that that's willing to join the military must be so much smaller, okay? Look at a guy like Bradley Manning, who obviously had mental health issues, who went into this knowing I'm not straight in the head, and comes out as Chelsea Manning now. Like that's one person in all the military that has gained vast notoriety. None of that matters except that I don't think that the number's that high of transgender people trying to join up in the military. However, let's not make the thing we're missing here is very similar to the gay marriage argument. Okay, we never ever came to a conclusion about what makes someone a homosexual. We just accepted their opinion on it. Okay, if you're a homosexual and you believe you're born that way, then we can honor that and we can say, okay, well, people are born as homosexuals, and if they want to get married, then they can get married. And so the big debate was, well, why is this not a civil rights issue? But we were never willing to go back and say, because you chose to do it. It's not a civil rights issue because it's a choice you're making. It's not, you know, it's not black and white, literally. You know, you're not born gay, in my opinion. If you are born gay, there's strong arguments against why that might be a problem. But I digress. The point is, you're also, in my opinion, not born transgender. But you may be born with a mental health issue that should be addressed. So what other mental health issues are we willing to ignore in exchange for someone wanting to serve in the military? That's the real argument here. It's not about should transgender people be allowed to serve. It's about, well, what is, if this is the term, I don't know, but what is transgenderism? What makes someone believe? When I look in the mirror, okay, I'm 6'2", about 240 pounds. If I look in the mirror and I don't see that, there's a problem upstairs. There's a problem, right? If I say to you, yeah, man, I work out all the time and I'm walking around with no shirt on, and you go, hey, you're not really in the best of shape. Maybe you could throw a shirt on. I go, what are you talking about? Look at me. Look at this beautiful body, right? You're like, you definitely have dad bod, but the problem with you is you've had it since you were 19. So if you could not show it off to everybody, that'd be great. And I'm like, what? No, I'm amazing.
Hey, while we're on the subject,
yes.
Could you put your shirt back on?
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Well, I thought I could convince you on the gay argument, but okay. But you see the point. You see the point. You would laugh behind my back and say,
think the bar for what is considered rational behavior, or just, I hate to use the word normal because it's not really a fair word.
Right? Nobody's normal.
Nobody's normal, but that bar for mental health has been, I think, lowered to this strange thing where things that wouldn't be acceptable suddenly are, and because they are socially, the left and whoever else says, well, then we got to do that for the military too.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing about this whole ban for the military is that, at least in my opinion and what I've read on it, is what Trump is trying to prevent is people joining the military who maybe already have this idea in their head that they're actually a woman or they're actually a man when they're really not, and having this surgery, and then the U.S. taxpayers foot the bill for it.
Sure.
So that seems to be the one of the main causes of this executive order. And then the other is those people need special accommodations, so they say.
Right.
And we're having to, so again, what percentage did you say of the U.S. population is transgender? Did you say that?
No, I don't know an actual percentage. I didn't dig that deep. I mean, I read a couple of studies.
It's got to be pretty low, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, the homosexual population in this country is less than 2%. I mean, we're talking, and of that population, the transgender portion, sorry, I don't know the terminology
of that.
Yeah, it's just a subset, and it's that much smaller. It's that much smaller.
So at that point, you have that, and then again, like you said earlier, take even smaller portion of that actually wants to be in the military, and now we have to make special accommodations for them.
Right.
Who's paying for that?
Right.
You are.
And what bunk are they sleeping in at night?
I guess whichever one they want.
It's such a logistical nightmare. Such a logistical nightmare. And to be real specific about it, in my opinion, so the broad point of view is, well, this is a mental health issue. So let's address mental health before we worry about you joining up in the military. Let's figure out what might be wrong.
Well, before you have a surgery like that, I would think you have to go through some sort of psychological examination. Is that not the case?
I don't know, but it seems...
I would think that's the case for most plastic surgeries.
Yeah, but mainstream people these days are so unwilling to go... Just imagine the bakeries not making cupcakes for gay weddings, and now they're having to shut down. Imagine being the plastic surgeon that says to some 35-year-old guy, I'm not going to put boobs on you and chop your penis off because I think there's something wrong in your head. You're done. Your career would be over.
Sure.
Your career would be over. You would be publicly lynched like everyone else with morals and principles in this country. It'd be over for you. But to be real specific, to me, transgenderism is a psychotic episode. Psychosis is believing you are something you are not, is believing things are happening that are not happening to you. That is psychosis. That's a medical definition. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If I look in the mirror and I see a black 18-year-old man every time, and I go around believing I'm a 18-year-old black American man, that there is a problem in my head. If I look in the mirror and I see a 36-year-old woman, there's still a problem in my head. So it's a psychosis. This is a psychological issue. So my problem specifically being that it's specifically a psychotic episode that's occurring. What else is this person capable of suddenly believing? If we're in a foxhole together and Jihad Joe is over there trying to kill me, and I look at you and you look at me and suddenly you see me as Jihad Joe, can I guarantee that you're going to be able to keep it together mentally long enough to fight that guy and kill him instead of killing me? Because who knows what your psychosis might become on the battlefield. Even a brain not currently suffering from a psychotic episode can become very skewed in a time of war. So it's a terrible, terrible, terrible idea to ignore a mental health issue at this level and capacity, and then to B, really pamper the people with the issue instead of offering them help and trying to get them the help they need, and then C, to put someone with what could only be described as a major mental health issue next to someone fighting for their life. Can you imagine having to deal with that, having that burden?
No thanks.
Absolutely just don't understand it. If you have a stronger argument for why we should just allow transgender people into the military, we'd love to hear it. Go to feltrecoilshow.com and you can click contact us and shoot an email over. You can email me directly, Chris, that's with a K, K-R-I-S, at feltrecoilshow.com. Patrick, common spelling for a common man, at feltrecoilshow.com. And it's not common spelling for common man all the way out. It's just Patrick.
Although we could arrange that.
All right. In the gun community, this is great. This really is great. So how much of a background do I need to give you? I don't know that you need a whole lot here, except that the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit has sided with the appellants, Brian Wren et al., as they were taking on the District of Columbia et al. This is an appeal from the U.S. District Court. Basically, here's what you have. D.C. had an outright ban on firearms. And the Supreme Court said you cannot ban all firearms, okay? There was the Heller case, which was Heller versus D.C., and then there was McDonald versus Chicago. Those are the two cases in recent memory where the Supreme Court said, and I think it's the only time the Supreme Court has said the Second Amendment guarantees the individual the right to keep and bear arms. So what D.C. did was D.C. said, okay, fine. We can't infringe on your right to keep arms, but we'll infringe on your right to bear arms. So if you want a permit to carry a gun concealed in the District of Columbia, you have to fill out all this paperwork, then you have to go through training, and then you have to prove that you have to have it, and we'll tell you whether or not we're going to allow it. And this court, in short, has said you are not allowed to do that. And there's some fascinating stuff here. Just stop me if I get too far in the weeds. But I will. As I mentioned at the top, these guys were citing English common law from something like 1325 or something like that. It's quite fascinating to read. So what they wanted to point out was what was called the Northampton Law. And the Northampton Law basically said you couldn't carry weapons around the king or his guards. Legitimately, this was from the 14th century. And so D.C. was saying, hey, since they could do it back then, we're okay to do it now because that was the basis for the Second Amendment. Since our Second Amendment was based on this, then we can base it on that as well, and we're going to be able to say that because D.C. is a high urban area and we have politicians and world leaders here, then it is no problem for us to say you're not allowed to have firearms in the actual district. Well, the court pointed out and said, well, actually, the Northampton Law was that you couldn't carry swords, weapons, whatever, in a threatening manner around the king and his guards. And so it actually ended up working against them. So that was just kind of like a golden little nugget of knowledge there. It's interesting to think that they thought they could use that in their favor, but the court actually made fun of them, which I thought was great because the court's going through and they're citing Heller 1 and Heller 2 and Heller 1 and Heller 2. And then they go on to say the so-called Northampton laws and the surety laws. Now, the surety laws were basically like this. Back in the day, in the U.S., in the early 19th century, if Patrick wanted to carry a gun in public, he was legally allowed to do it. As was everybody else. But if I could prove that I thought Patrick was a threat with a weapon, I could go
You've seen me shoot.
Yeah, right. And you hate me. I'd go to the sheriff and I go, I think Patrick's going to hurt me.
Both things are true.
With his gun. Right. And the sheriff would issue a bond against Hulon carrying a gun, and Hulon would have to pay the bond to assure that he didn't do anything stupid, like try and outdraw me.
What was it back then, like a nickel?
Probably a lot less. 1 shilling. 1 copper cup? I don't know. So anyway, what's great is that they were citing this, and so then the court said, okay, right, that's the surety law, and yes, that was a thing in the U.S., but it never infringed on Patrick's right to carry a firearm. Though he had to pay the bond, he could still carry a firearm, and you've gone above and beyond that. So everything D.C. tried to argue that was so stupid, by the way, the court not only struck down, but then basically mocked in its opinion. Here's a quote from the opinion. Happily, though, the state of the law in Chaucer's England, or for that matter, Shakespeare or Cromwell's, is not decisive here. Heller holds that by Heller holds that by the time of the founding, the pre-existing right enshrined in the amendment had ripened to include carrying more broadly than the district contends based on its reading of the 14th century statute. Let me go through and just read some highlights. Is that going to be all right? Will that be too boring?
I didn't read all this, so I actually kind of want to hear it.
All right. So DC made you apply for a permit and then said they'd let you know if you're allowed to have one. And for the record, DC said that living in a high crime area was not enough to warrant being granted a license to carry.
You know Emily Miller?
I do.
Not on a personal level, but
No,
you know
but
of
I know
her.
of her. Yeah.
So if you follow her on social media, she actually wrote a book called Emily Gets Her Gun.
Yeah.
It's all about her and her experience with Metro DC and trying to apply for a CWP because she is a journalist.
Yep. For the Washington Examiner.
A conservative journalist at that, for the Washington Examiner. And what's the, is it One News?
Yeah, she's kind of moving.
like
She's
that.
really expanding her resume, but I'm not sure where all she is right now. But yes, you're right.
The point is she's explaining all these loopholes you have to jump through, and that you have to prove this sort of just cause that your life is in danger in order to get a permit.
Should be somebody good to reach out and see if we could get a phone call with to talk about this. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, I know this for a fact, she substantiated direct threats to her life through social media, and they still turned her down.
They still denied it. Yep.
Unbelievable. All right, so the opinion for the court was filed by Circuit Judge Griffith, and the dissenting opinion, if you care, was from Judge Henderson, just so you know.
God damn old Henderson.
That's right. So they write this. The constitutional challenges to gun laws create peculiar puzzles for courts. In other areas, after all, a law's validity may turn on the value of its goals and the efficiency of its means. But gun laws almost always aim at the most compelling goal, saving lives, while evidence of their effect is almost always deeply contested. So that's pretty interesting, right? Because what he's saying there is you guys always say you're passing these laws to save lives, but you can never prove that it works. Griffith continues. On top of that, the Supreme Court has offered little guidance. Its first in-depth examination of the Second Amendment is younger than the first iPhone. District of Columbia versus Heller. That's 2008. And by its own admission, that first treatment manages to be mute on how to review gun laws in a range of other cases. At the Second Amendment, but listening closely to Heller 1 reveals this much at least. Let me expand this because my eyes are bad. Let me find where I was. I'm sorry. It reveals this much at least. The Second Amendment erects some absolute barriers that no gun law may breach. This lesson will prove crucial as we consider the challenges before us. It's also worth noting, by the way, I did make a note of this. You're going to hear the name Matthew Grace and the Pink Pistols being a part of suing D.C. here. Matthew Grace and the Pink Pistols is actually a homosexual advocacy group for the right to carry firearms to prevent hate crimes. So if DC is opposed to them, they're homophobic.
Is that what this? Did you? Is this from them?
No,
this mail that you
no,
have
that's
out?
from Kia of Greenville.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Patrick is handling. Great. Now you've diverted me.
Sorry.
That's all right. I came home and there was what appeared to be a brown lunch sack in my driveway, and it had my name on the front and a little white label, and it was from Kia asking me to come buy a car from them. They had legitimately Look at our Instagram account. I'm not lying to you. They taped up a brown paper sack and put their flyer in it and asked me to come buy a car from Kia of Greenville.
We'll come back to that.
When you hear this, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Okay. Sorry. Patrick basically just told me to shut up. Okay. Here's another interesting point, by the way. In South Carolina, I know Texas, I believe, is different, by the way. In South Carolina, it's illegal to use a firearm to defend your property. But if you remember the famous case out of Texas where the homeowner asked his neighbor to watch his property, that 911 call went viral where the two illegals were robbing the house. Remember that? And he calls 911. He's like, yeah, my neighbor asked me to watch his property, and there's two guys robbing his house right now. So I'm going to go out there. And the dispatcher, as dumb as they always are, was like, no, sir, you stay inside. And he was like, nope, law's on my side. And he went outside and shot him, killed one of them, injured the other, and was acquitted because he could prove, and the neighbor testified, that the neighbor had asked him to guard his property. And Texas allows you to use the force to protect your property. South Carolina does not. So here's an interesting point that the court makes. Heller 1's observation is that the need for defense of self, family, and property is most acute in the home. But the fact that the need for self-defense is most pressing in the home doesn't mean that self-defense at home is the only right at the Second Amendment's core. Here's one to shut up, by the way. I'm not picking on people who are in favor of open carry, okay? Open carry's okay if you want to open carry.
I will if you won't.
I'm picking on the guys that go to Chili's with their ARs slung forward, acting the fool just to prove a point that open carry is legal. You're carrying in an offensive manner, and I don't mean it offends me. I mean it looks like you're ready to fight me, and it makes me want to shoot you before you hurt yourself or my family. That's what I'm saying. Those guys are a problem. Nobody can argue the open carry advocates of YouTube are problematic, to say the least. But James Wilson, this is the court's opinion, by the way. James Wilson, early commentator, virtual co-author of the Constitution, and member of the Supreme Court's first cohort, that founding-era Northampton laws banned only the carrying of dangerous and unusual weapons in such a manner as will naturally diffuse a terror among the people. The works of the Honorable James Wilson is the citation for that. Even more explicit, if less prominent, is one early commentator's observation that while riding or going armed with dangerous or unusual weapons is a crime against the public peace, but by terrifying the people of the land. It should be remembered that in this country, the Constitution guarantees to all persons the right to bear arms. Then it can only be a crime to exercise this right in such a manner as to terrify the people unnecessarily. Okay? So that's from one of the founding fathers who was a co-author of the Constitution and member of the first Supreme Court. It can only be a crime to bear arms in public if you're doing it to terrify the people unnecessarily, which slinging on an AR-15, wearing it forward of yourself with your hand on the grip and walking into TGI Fridays or Chili's or Starbucks means you're trying to unnecessarily terrify the public.
Even if you're just there for some jalapeno poppers?
That's exactly right.
Maybe some sliders? What about some boneless buffalo wings?
No, I mean, that's all good. That's all good things, but take your AR-15 off and leave it in the car.
All right.
Which was, if you remember, Starbucks got in the hot seat and everybody thinks Starbucks is anti-gun because there was legitimately video of guys sipping their Frappuccinos out front of a Starbucks with their AR-15 slung forward, holding on with one hand, and they're drinking the other, and Starbucks said, look, we're just going to ask that you leave the guns at home. That's all they said. Just leave them at home. And those guys went nuts. They went crazy. I say conceal it, and nobody's the wiser. And if Starbucks was anti-gun, they would put up signs that legally prohibit you from carrying in their stores, but not a single Starbucks I've ever seen has done that yet, which means the company is not anti-gun. They just asked a bunch of bozos to not show up and terrify everybody. All right. The court goes on and says, reading the Second Amendment and applying Heller 1's reasoning and crediting key early sources, we conclude the individual right to carry common firearms beyond the home for self-defense, even in densely populated areas, even for those lacking special defense needs, falls within the core of the Second Amendment's protections. The right to keep and to bear, to possess and to carry are equally important, inasmuch as regulations on each must leave alternative channels for both. So this was an interesting thing to bear in mind. Basically, what the court says is that if a law is going to be passed that restricts your right to bear arms in public, as DC has done, then they cannot restrict your right to keep them in the home. They must allow a channel for the right to keep and bear arms. Those are equitable rights under one banner. Does that make sense? So you have the right to keep.
Two different definitions. To keep and to bear.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's two different exercises of the same right.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. So, yes, you have a right to have a gun. You have a right to have a gun in your home. You have a right to carry it in public. You have a right to keep and bear arms. So can we restrict your right to bear arms? Absolutely. Absolutely. But that means that we have to prove we're not also restricting your right just to have it. Which to me, what's great about this whole case, by the way, they can restrict our right to class 3 items, but they can't restrict us from having them. Okay? As ridiculous. And by the way, if you subscribe to Recoil Magazine, if you don't, you should. Great article in there. Did you read that yet about the history of the NFA? Great article. Great article. Go read it. Great. And then you get to the end. It's this beautiful blonde woman that wrote it. And you're just like, oh. Anyway, great article. And worth your time. Go pick up a copy of Recoil and just read that article. But as frustrating as the NFA is, and as mad as that article makes you, it's like, at least we know that the courts are now siding and saying we can't completely, stamp out your right to have those things. All right.
And I hope the ATF sees the writing on the wall.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. They won't.
They won't, but,
So, so the court goes on to say, by the way, I hope this helps summarize the point I'm trying to make. When a state, this is from the court's opinion, when a state bans guns merely in particular places, such as public schools, a person can preserve an undiminished right of self-defense by not entering the school. Okay? By contrast, a ban on owning and storing guns at home leaves no alternative channels for keeping arms. Okay? So you have the right to bear arms, but the state's allowed to tell you where you can and can't do that, but they're not allowed to tell you absolutely can't do it at all. You have a right to keep arms, and the state's allowed to tell you, but you can't keep these, but they're not allowed to tell you can't keep any at all. Make sense? Okay, hope so. I think this is basically the summation of it. These points confirm that the rights to keep and bear arms are on equal footing, that the law must leave responsible, law-abiding citizens some reasonable means of exercising each. The prevalence of, say, bans on carrying near sensitive sites would prove that the right to bear arms mattered less only if our law would reject equally modest burdens on keeping arms. For example, bans on storing them on open surfaces at home. Neither the Second nor the Fourth Circuit has suggested that it would. So, each was too quick to infer that our legal tradition demotes the right to bear arms relative to its constitutional twin. All right, too much in the weeds there. The point is, each circuit, the Second and the Fourth, that have heard this case before them, has suggested that the law would reject equally modest burdens on keeping arms. So they were too quick to believe that the legal tradition puts the right to bear arms lower than the right to keep arms. And so what this court is saying is that they're twins. They're one and the same. You have the right to keep and bear arms, and they have to leave room for both when they pass laws.
So if you're listening to this and you're in D.C., hurry up and go ahead and put in for your permit before they get wise and decide to change all this back.
Well, there's not a whole lot left they can do.
Well, let's hope.
That's true. But here's a great thing about this opinion. I could have made this point at the top probably. The opinion actually goes through step by step of what D.C. has done since the Supreme Court ruling of 2008 to try and still affect a ban on firearms. And they tell them why none of them are legal. So there's no going back to the drawing board. What this opinion essentially is a district or an appeals court telling a city council to stop acting like they're the court. I took a constitutional law class in college, and so many years ago, and I remember the professor saying
last year.
Yeah, really. The professor said, who thinks they know what the Constitution means, essentially, was the question of the day. What is the Constitution? So obviously everybody's trying to give these intelligent answers, myself included, I'm sure. And he finally goes, the Constitution means whatever the court says it means. And if you have a problem with that, this class will not be fun for you. And then he went on to say that if you look back at the history of the Supreme Court in Marbury versus Madison, that was where the Supreme Court said we have the right of judicial review, which means we have the right to tell you if a law is legal or illegal, or constitutional or non-constitutional, I should say. That is not a power granted to the Supreme Court by the Constitution. Supreme Court does not have a judicial review power written into the Constitution.
But I mean, if they give themselves the power,
they gave it to themselves.
Then,
And as liberal as that professor admittedly was,
it's an infinity loop, sir.
Exactly right. Exactly. That was really the humorous part to him. He was a bleeding heart liberal, but he would never deny the fact that the entire government was so just messed up and perverse. Because what does it mean? It means whatever the court says it means. What does the right to keep and bear arms mean? And that's a funny thing, because you get in conversations with people that go, well, I got the right to keep and bear arms, my Second Amendments. I believe you do.
Both of them.
Right. But
both of your Second Amendments.
Unfortunately, you live in a time and place where it only matters what the court thinks. You have 9 unelected people. Yes,
today.
exactly.
Because tomorrow it could mean something totally different.
Exactly. The article I was mentioning in Recoil, she cites, what does she call it? Like the kerfuffle with the SIG brace or something. She has like a really strong slight at the ATF about the fact that they can't make their minds up about the SIG brace. And it's all just horribly ridiculous and horribly burdensome.
Which I think that's just like, that's the ATF going, guys, come on. Like, this is a lot of paperwork. It's all these SBRs. Could you just knock it off?
Right.
And then Larry over there goes, well, hey, we could just make that SIG brace legal again, and then we wouldn't have to do so much paperwork.
Right.
Larry, you're getting a raise.
Yeah. Somebody bump Larry to the top. Smart man. Yeah. All right. So hopefully that gives you a great overview of the case. I think what I'll do, if you'd like, is you go to feltrecoilshow.com. I'll write a little blog about this and kind of lay it all out for you. And you can go and read the court's opinion, read what I think are most of the highlights, and go from there. Okay. 2 things I definitely want to get to. Am I looking at this? I like Springfield Armory, by the way. I have quite a few of their guns, but
You're wearing their shirt right now.
I am at Springfield. If you could stop releasing guns and calling them new, that are nothing but
New colors
and new iterations. So now we have the Range Officer Elite, and then they sent another email in the same week that said brand new Springfield Armory Saint, but it's just a Saint that's been free floated. I get it, but that's not a new gun.
And they sent another one that has FTE furniture and called that a new model.
Jeez, it's so annoying. I'm just going through the rundown here. Anyway, all right. Let's get to, can we just talk about Kia of Greenville for a second?
By all means.
As you heard us mention, it's true. I come home tonight and there's literally a sandwich sack. There's a brown paper sack folded up in my driveway with my name and address on it. And I open it up. And what's the postmark on that? What's the return address?
Address is in Cornelius, North Carolina.
Right. Okay. So it was weird for me. Cornelius, North Carolina. I'm not even sure where that is. We are in Taylors, South Carolina, technically, which is a suburb of Greenville. Probably, would you say, an hour and 15 from the North Carolina border from where we sit right now?
For sure.
You hop on 29, head straight up. You'd be in North Carolina about an hour and 15 minutes.
45 minutes to the border, but if you're headed towards like Charlotte, it's going to take you a little longer.
All right. And so I'm like, what weirdo lawn maintenance company? Because you know how you get those packs of rocks? Do you ever get those?
Yeah.
Or whatever? Or even like a shingle from a roof or something? They're like, let's come here and redo your roof. That's kind of where I thought this was. But it's a car advertisement begging me to come to Kia of Greenville and see if this fake key fits an actual car. I love that. I love it.
Whoa. I'm holding this key in my hand.
Right.
How do you know it's fake?
I'll tell you this much. That key wouldn't turn the deadbolt on my front door, let alone crank the engine of a car.
It looks just like modern car keys.
I take that back. I take it back. It's a Kia. I forgot we were talking about Kia for a second. It probably would crank a Kia. Maybe. Might crank a maybe.
Let's put this on Instagram. It literally is stamped on the key.
Loser?
Factory duplicate.
Loser key. I'll tell you this. Here's my sentiments on Kia. Twofold. Number one, I worked in radio for a while, and we used to do business with Kia, and essentially you had to be a used car salesman for an afternoon. So we were at Kia of Greer, and I got in trouble because one of our genius salespeople at the time thought, you know what we should do? Instead of ordering Papa John's pizza like normal radio stations do and feeding people Papa John's pizza, what we could do is have the people that are there that work for us grill hot dogs. We'll just have the on-air guy, that was me, grill hot dogs. And people will dig that. They'll be like, what? He's going to make me a hot dog? I'll do it. Yay. So here we are, and I've literally got this like Coleman campfire grill thing. You know, the one where the legs are no more than 8 inches off the ground. So you're hunkered over it trying to do your work. And
imagine you on all fours. That is some dogs.
Very close to reality. So we're trying to light charcoal and grill these hot dogs, and this obnoxious used car salesman comes out and he goes, "Do me a favor. Hey."
You thought he was going to ask you to move your car?
"Hey, you do me a favor? You take those 2 in the back right and make them extra dark." And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I legitimately ignored him. I just didn't listen. And I served them to anybody else that wanted them. And he came out a little bit later. Hey, you got those 2 well done dogs? Got those 2 well done dogs? I said, no, I don't. Because anybody that's asking for a hot dog right now is getting one. And we're not here to special order you hot dogs. I was so frustrated. Well, he goes in and tells like his boss. And his boss comes out and goes, "I paid for you to be here and cook some hot dogs. You'll cook hot dogs. Wait until you cook hot dogs." And it's like this big ordeal, like a huge ordeal, because I wasn't going to be a line cook for the used Kia car dealer. So I'm telling you that to say that I'm already biased against Kia. I know a guy who bought a couple of Kias and within a couple of years had to buy a couple other cars because his Kias didn't last.
Wait a minute.
I know it's hard to believe. If you drive a Kia, I'm very proud of you. But my history with Kia is not so friendly, and I don't look at them as highbrow. But I also didn't expect a lunch sack with a fake car key in it. So
who falls for this?
A lot of people, man. A lot of people. They show up at those events, and they think their key is going to win them a car, and then they never do. And it's a funny thing because radio stations do the same thing. If you're listening to a big radio station in town, pay attention when they give away like $10,000 an hour every hour or $1,000 an hour every hour. Always notice it's a brand new phone number. So it's a nationwide contest that's insured by some company. And then, John Doe from Kalamazoo won the $1,000 this hour. Better luck to you next time. Yeah, right, BS. I don't believe it for a minute.
How's that legal, though? How can you say you're going to give a car away, but you don't actually ever give it away? There's got to be something.
I'm sure they do. Somebody wins it. But look, the point is, you're talking a country of 400 million people. How many of those people even care about Kias? Probably not a lot. So maybe your odds are greater. Is there fine print? I was about to say,
is there fine print, sir?
What's the odds of winning my crappy Kia?
Oh, let's see here. There's a lot of fine. This might take me a minute.
While you look, I'm going to read it. Kia of Greenville. Turn it. Can you turn it so I can see the face? No, turn it to the other side and you read the back side. Kia of Greenville. Summer sales event. This is my, we call these guys pukers. When you're in radio and you hear that guy talking like that, they're called pukers. Kia of Greenville. Summer sales event. Where? Kia of Greenville, you dumbass. When? Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sincerely, Ken, General Manager. Come in today. You may have won one of these 4 great prizes. I can't tell what the 4 great prizes are from here.
I think they're mostly Walmart gift cards for $25.
There's 2 ways to win. Scratch over here or come in and try your key and match your number to see if you've won.
I can't believe you haven't scratched this off yet.
What is this called? Wait, pull your left hand down. There you go. Kia Rio. What is this, Mad Gab? Are we playing a game of Mad Gab right now?
We are.
The 2017 Kia Rio.
All right, the Kia Rio has a estimated retail value of $15,000.
Right.
And your odds of winning, 1 in 30,000.
There you go. And here's another thing about Kia. They do this thing. This was the second point I wanted to make about them. They used to do this thing. They might still do it, where it was like $7,000 off sticker price, right? All Kia, or they didn't say all Kias. That would be incorrect. But they found a clever way to basically put you under the assumption that every car on the lot was $7,000 off. And at the same remote where I got in trouble for not cooking the dude's hot dogs to order, I remember walking up and I said, "Okay, so all cars are $7,000 off," and they were like, "No, these." And legitimately, on one hand, you could count the cars that were $7,000 off, and they were like $30,000 sticker price. I said, "Who pays $30,000 for a junk of Kia? Like Kia is a $15,000, $12,000 car."
Bottom end BMW for that much money.
Unreal. I hate Kia.
Here's a fun line out of the fine print.
Okay.
In the event of print or mechanical errors, any malfunctioning locking mechanism or keys, duplicate winning keys being distributed in error,
right,
contest is void and no prize will be awarded.
It's because Kia's not even doing it.
No.
This is all farmed out to somebody else.
What this means is if they send out 2 duplicate keys, the contest is null and void.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing, though, is that Kia isn't actually... So Kia has hired an insurance... Well, they've hired a company to host this event for them and put it on. And then they've insured the event, right? So if somebody wins... probably, the giveaway is insured. So they're actually, they're paying a small fee, but not as much as the car would cost type thing, which is, I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe
to
they're
make
not.
sure nobody wins.
Yeah, but it's like when companies give away a lot of money. If somebody happens to win, because their hope is that the winning key gets thrown in the trash.
Sure.
That's what they hope. They hope, well, let's mail out 100,000 and let's hope that the majority of them go in the trash. And then a few people show up, nobody wins, and we get to put them in a bunch of new cars and hopefully sell a bunch of new cars as well. A bunch of crap cars, by the way, that will fall. I don't know. I'm not a huge Kia fan, if you can't tell. But anyway, I thought it was great.
I thought that's where you kept your LCP.
Yes, right in the glove box of my Kia. And when I have an LCP, that is where you'll find it. Neither of those things will ever happen. Poor people.
Next time you set your keys down, I'm going to put this key on your key ring, just so you know.
Oh my!
I can't believe you haven't scratched this off yet. You could win up to $1,000 in gift card.
Patrick,
minimum $100.
Literally,
you could win a
scratch it. Scratch it off right now. Scratch it. There's something in here, right?
Yeah, the key. I'm using the key.
Man.
Yeah.
All right. So what do we have a chance at winning? What do we have a chance at?
You could win an Apple iPhone 7.
Don't need it.
An Amazon Echo. Sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Up to $1,000 in gift cards from either Walmart or Target.
What is an Amazon Echo? I thought that was Alexa. Who's Alexa?
I don't know, man.
Okay, all right. I won't interrupt you.
I think it's the same thing.
Is there a chance for me to win a Toyota?
It's one of those things that listens to you all the time that nobody really wants.
Right. Can I win a Toyota Tundra? Because that's what I'd really like one day. I need the extended crew cab so I can get all 3 kids in the back.
Maybe when you're grown up.
All right.
Or you could win a GoPro Karma drone.
Definitely don't want that, but okay.
All right, we're scratching it off. Yeah, I can see the word winner.
I'm so nervous.
Bated breath, I'm sure.
Do you see the word almost above winner? That wouldn't surprise me.
Below it says psych. Okay, it says 4019 winner. I have no idea what that means.
Now, are any of the items marked 4019? 4019 an Amazon?
Yes, they are.
A free test drive.
The gift card is marked 4019.
The gift card to what? To Kia?
You didn't win a Karma drone, sir.
What did I win? I won a gift card to what?
No, hang on. I'm looking. Let's see here.
Probably to their gift shop.
A minimum of $100 gift card to Walmart, Target, or maybe Amazon. It's really small. It's hard to read.
I'll tell you what we're going to do.
But I think you have to go there and then show them this to get your gift card.
I'm going to go there and show them that, and then we're going to give the gift card away.
And then I think you should just hand it to them and say, "Hey, I won this." And when they're like, "Hey, would you want to take a test drive of one of our fabulous Kia mobiles?" And you're like, "Nope." Right. And they hand you the gift card, and you just turn around and walk away and get in your Volkswagen and drive off.
Yes. Yes. Look at my 2010 Volkswagen that's paid for and will run for, probably 200,000 more miles. So here's the deal.
This is going to be great.
Can you please go to facebook.com/feltrecoilshow and tell me which one you would like? Are you sure? So it's definitely Walmart, Target, or Amazon?
I think
so.
Is
that definitive?
I don't know that we get to pick, but there's so much fine print. This thing's ridiculous.
All right, but just do me the favor of visiting our Facebook page and just put on the wall what if I get a choice, which one you would want me to choose, because then I'll choose that one and we'll give it away on next week's show. Does that sound like a plan? I
like it.
It's Kia of Greenville. I don't even know where that is, but I think that'd be close to probably where I work. I'll find it. Doesn't matter.
2424 Lawrence Road.
All right,
on
close
the
enough.
motor mile.
You know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go by there and then tell them I'm gonna go see my buddy Jake Odom, have some coffee. What was he, number 3 or 4? One of our first episodes. Jake Odom was here, and he is the president of Big Old Dodge.
Underneath the big American flag
on a motor mile. So they'll probably be next door neighbors. Stupid Kia. That's so dumb. All right. I think that's about it. That's all I got, unless I missed anything. We're over our hour mark, which means I'll hear from my dad about it. But I think we got all the basics covered. I hope that helped with the court ruling. You're probably going to hear about it. People talking about, you can carry in DC. Technically you can, but you better apply and get your permit and all that. What they're basically saying is that DC now has to issue permits to people to carry concealed in the district, which is cool, because I'll tell you this, my wife and I, we vacation in DC. I love DC, but the one thing that does draw me away from is the fact that I can't go prepared. Wink, wink. I can't wink. I can't be prepared. Wink while we're in the district. Wink, wink. Also,
no, I get it.
Okay, you see what I'm saying? That I take my gun anyway? Okay. Hey, can they prosecute me for that? I don't know. All right.
They'd have to listen first.
Hey, quick side note. I do want to tell you, I bought the FN 509. If you haven't seen the video yet, go to youtube.com/feltrecoilshow. Had such a good time with the guys at the pro shop down at FN. We got the video finally all put together. Just so you know, the opening is a huge joke. Huge joke. I asked where the LC9s are.
If you don't get it, you're in the wrong spot anyway.
Right. I can't imagine a worse gun than the LC9. If I could, I would have used that. But maybe the PT-111 G2, since they actually get sold to terrorists by the company that makes them. But anyway, so I asked where those were. It was a good time. Go look. But I have been looking tirelessly for good holsters for the 509, and I'm surprised at how many big names aren't making holsters. I'm going to withhold the name of the company I want to name. I'm just so disappointed. I have so much of their stuff already, and they're not doing a single 509 holster, so I was pretty disappointed with that. But I do want you to know, if you have a 509 as well, and you hear this, Black Point is making holsters, and I have a couple of Black Points upstairs for my XD, XDM.
I have a 1911 holster from them.
Yeah, good stuff. Really good stuff. And not only are they making 509 holsters, they're also making light-bearing holsters as well. So,
and I know it was a little fuzzy, but we went to a after party in Atlanta for the NRA show that was hosted by Black Point.
Yeah.
I got to meet the owners. Chris got to meet the owners. Chris doesn't remember meeting the owners, but it was a good time.
It was a lot of fun, and they were nice guys. And that's not why I'm giving them this plug, by the way. I just want you to know, it just dawned on me for some reason. I thought, well, I could check Black Point. Because, I'm telling you, you name a major manufacturer of holsters, and I checked their websites, and they all had standard, well, not all of them. Some of them had standard 509 holsters, but none of them were making them light-bearing. On my Glock 19, I have the Surefire XC1. And it actually fits the 509 better than it fits the 19. That's just the long and short of it. So I wanted to find somebody that would do that. I actually emailed a custom Kydex company and said, hey, would you guys do this for me? And they said no. And in fact, what was odd...
Emphasis on custom?
Yes,
How
exactly.
custom are they if they won't do that?
Great question.
All right.
And then here's the thing. They told me they had discontinued certain models. I said, where are you in your head right now that you think a 509 with an XC1 should be discontinued? Neither one of those things is more than a couple years old. Anyway, so my point is, I thought, look at Black Point, and Black Point's making them just for the 509, or they had probably 6 lights you could choose from on the website. So if you're rocking the 509 and you need something with a light on it, go that route. And look, you can choose if you want it candid to the right or if you want it straight. I go straight.
Well, after shooting yours, I fell in love with it. Yeah. I already loved my FNS9. And like I've said a couple times already on the show, this is the natural progression. I like the dual recoil spring. We actually went back and watched video of us shooting the gun, and it to me, watching the video, you don't see the recoil travel through your arms. You just see the slide move.
Yeah.
So they've done a great job with recoil management, and so I'm definitely in love with it. I will be getting one myself very, very, very soon.
Very good. And just to wrap up, we've asked FN if we could come down. We're looking forward to visiting with those guys. They're on board with us going down. We're going to do a full podcast from the pro shop at some point in the near future. And hopefully we'll have somebody really, really cool and way out of our league with us next week. We hope that happens. In the meantime, please visit feltrecoilshow.com. Find us on all the social medias. I'm being told to, is that a wrap it up or is that a keep going?
No, you're good.
What, do I wrap it or do I keep going?
Both.
Both? That doesn't make any sense. Makes no sense at all. None whatsoever. Do I wrap it?
So it makes
I don't
perfect
wrap it. Okay.
Makes perfect sense that it doesn't make sense.
I feel very weird about this whole exchange.
Just do whatever you want to do. Really.
I got a lot more I could talk about, but we're at a minute and about 11 seconds right now. So
a minute and 11 seconds.
A minute. Is that what I said?
Yeah.
I meant an hour and 11 minutes. See, now I'm way out of it. You know what? We should go. We've outstayed our welcome. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for telling your friends about the Felt Recoil podcast. I still feel like I meet somebody new every week who is listening and downloading and giving us feedback. And feedback's always appreciated. Brian, it was good to see you this week a couple times. Jason from Virginia, it was good to see you, or hear from you, I should say. And, I ran into Jonathan Brayton again, so good to see him as well. All right, we'll see you next week, okay? Be number 37. Bye-bye.